Like pretty much every other presidential debate ever, a lot of the stats that the two candidates brought up the other day were very exaggerated to make their side look good, or just plain made up. So to avoid copyright issues, I'm just going to say the questions that Dana Bash or Jake Tapper gave to the candidates. The first question was for Biden. Jake Tapper asked Biden what he would say to voters who feel the economy was better under Trump.
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach in your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible.
Blaming everything on COVID would have probably been the better way to go, considering it was Democrats that wanted to keep things closed. It was Democrats that wanted to keep everyone on lockdown, and Democrats that hurt the economy. Trump wanted the economy to keep going. But in Biden's defense, the United States recovered from COVID better than pretty much every other country, which makes a lot of sense. The United States has the most agile economy in the world. It became pretty obvious pretty early in the debate that Biden wasn't able to shake the claims about his cognitive ability or his age.
An insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they conclude beginning next year.
Trump was asked to follow up, and he said that the economy was great before COVID, and it was. Even Democrats agree to that. So when Biden said this, it sounded like he was a bit out of touch.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world, he's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks that we have the greatest economy in the world.
He then goes on to recite some very, very misleading stats, like how Trump is the only president since Herbert Hoover to lose more jobs after he began the presidency, and that's because of COVID. But this next lie that Biden told was probably the worst of the night and angered the most amount of people.
The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world.
He switched it from centuries to decades, and neither one of those are true, because during the withdrawal of Afghanistan, 13 service members passed away. And there were another 3 that just recently happened in Jordan. The withdrawal from Afghanistan will stain Biden's presidency forever. Now, a lot of people in his inner circle say that Trump set him up to fail. But Trump didn't set up Afghanistan thinking he was going to lose. Trump definitely thought he was going to win in 2020. Why would he set himself up? Biden 100% botched that withdrawal, and Trump let him know.
And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
I know a lot of veterans that say the same exact thing. Just about every combat veteran I've ever met agrees with that. One of the first misstatements by Trump was that he said the United States is not respected on a global stage anymore, and we resemble a third world country, which is something I debunk with TikTokers all the time.
Throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation.
The international opinion of the United States actually increased since Biden has been president. It has gone down since then, but at its lowest was 2020. For countries like Poland, Belgium, South Korea, and Australia, the highest approval rating for the United States was in 2022, right in the middle of the Biden administration. But it has been a downward trend across the world for Biden since then. Times like this definitely doesn't help his case internationally.
Eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Bruh, 2016 Trump would have had an absolute field day with that.
President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
There were so many moments like that, and now Democrats are in full panic mode. There's even talk of replacing Biden. There's no way in hell they're going to be able to do that, and if they did do that, it would be Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris would lose to Donald Trump by 10 points.
They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people.
Now, they pretty much pertains to Western Europe, because nowhere else in the world thinks that, which is hilarious because the United States outranks most European countries in education. The countries that we don't outrank, like Japan and South Korea, believe that the United States is a very smart country. It's almost a perfect correlation. As dumb as people think the United States is how low they score. Places like Italy, France, and Norway think Americans are all like 100% stupid. We outrank them significantly in every aspect of education across the board. So from here, they dive right over to Roe versus Wade. Biden has had a pretty consistent record on this issue his entire political career. With Trump, he's a bit more wishy-washy. It almost seems like it depends on what crowd he's in front of. Sometimes he sounds like he's 1,000% pro-life, sometimes he's pro-choice.
Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it.
So here he makes his political position known. He has like a center-right position when it comes to Roe versus Wade. But here's where he gets things wrong.
Everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court.
And this is another way that Biden lost this debate. Trump was just saying complete misinformation, stuff that Joe Biden should know off the top of his head, and he just let it slide. There was no rebuttal to it. 51 years ago, Biden was around. He would know that that was not the case. 51 years ago, Trump was also a registered Democrat. Now, this next statement made by Trump sounds absolutely insane. Sounds like something he just completely made up. But it's true. 100% true.
After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.
Now, I think a lot of Democrats have post-Trump clarity. Like they were just trying to have edgy radical positions like this and trying to out-left each other for years. This is kind of the result. They can't back away from this. They can't say that none of them agree with this, because a lot of people were defending Ralph Northam at the time. Here's what Biden said when he was asked if he supports late-term abortions.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die.
This is true. Roe versus Wade only covered the first 24 weeks of pregnancy, but that's still very, very late compared to other countries. In most countries throughout the world where this service is available, it's no longer available after about 12 to 16 weeks.
But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
So with this debate, they jump from issue to issue. They jump right from this to immigration. This was another moment where Biden trailed off, like right in the middle of a sentence.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
It was a very rough moment for Biden, but he did bring up how Biden had Democrats and Republicans at the table debating this issue and about to pass a bill, yet Trump talked to the Republicans and they walked away from it. But that bill would have been way too little, way too late. They didn't spend too much time on immigration at all. They know it's pretty much a lost cause for Biden. They went pretty quickly onto foreign policy. They brought up the conflict in Eastern Europe. They asked Trump if Putin's conditions were acceptable for Ukraine to give up the area that Russia has already claimed and to drop its NATO bid.
Which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine?
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started.
So the conditions were that Ukraine gives up the area that Russia has already taken from them, and they drop their NATO bid. Now, I am 1,000% against the first one. I'm actually kind of for the second one. I don't think Ukraine belongs in NATO. If they join, that will be the country. That will be ground zero to World War III.
The money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled.
During this conversation, there was a really bad flub by Biden. He said that Belarus was in NATO.
If he takes Ukraine, what do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries?
So yeah, number one, Belarus is not in NATO. Two, Belarus is one of Russia's closest allies, so I doubt anything would happen to them.
The European nations together have spent $100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen.
Well, it seems to be two different things that he's talking about. Europe pulling their own weight as NATO, and Europe pulling their own weight giving money to Ukraine. It's also pretty important to note that the dollar amount isn't just cash being sent to Ukraine. A lot of the money counted is weaponry given to Ukraine. Germany is the same way. But I do agree they need to step up and give more. It does affect them a lot more than it affects the United States. From here, the presidential debate shifts to January 6th, 2021. This was Trump's answer to Jake Tapper's question, what do you say to the people that believe that January 6th can happen again?
I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, what they say, but she's saying, oh no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of D.C.
Now this is very, very new information. But what he said is true. Nancy Pelosi claimed responsibility for January 6th.
Did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for war.
Nancy Pelosi says that's the Republicans' attempt to rewrite history, but her daughter filmed her saying that. Also, the President of the United States does not need authorization to deploy the National Guard from the Speaker of the House or from the Mayor of D.C. So we're about halfway done the debate. We're going to take a little break from it to go behind the scenes a little bit. It's kind of sad to see what's happening, because nobody's being harder on Biden right now than himself. The First Lady, Jill Biden, reveals what Joe said to her after the debate. He said he wasn't sure what happened to him and that he just kind of froze up and he couldn't go from brain to mouth, which happens to me sometimes when I make videos. But the problem that Biden has is that pretty much his entire adult life is archived. So you can go back to the 1980s and listen to the way that Biden spoke, and he is so much clearer.
Our loyalty is not to South Africa, it's to South Africans. And the South Africans are majority black, and they are being excoriated.
So it's not really the brain-to-mouth thing that most people have when they give speeches or make content like this video. It's really how far he's fallen from the way he was able to speak before. And a lot of people knew it was bad and that he has fallen from how he was able to speak, but this debate really highlighted it. And a lot of people think that he won't be able to finish a second term, which would leave the presidency to Kamala Harris, who, by the way, never celebrated Kwanzaa. Since we're on a quick break, too, you can look at the bio on my TikTok, and it'll bring you to the Blockscast merch store. Really good prices. I try to make it as low as possible. Pretty much everything's under 30 bucks. Only making a few bucks a shirt. I'd rather just get my image out there and have you have a cool shirt to wear. All right, back to the presidential debates. So they begin the second half of the presidential debates talking about black voters. Biden famously said, if you don't vote for him, you're not black. Those voters are now very disappointed with the progress made in the black community.
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation.
Not entirely. In fact, he has got it under control in the past year and a half. It's down to 4%. That also had a lot to do with COVID, and we did a lot better than most countries.
Is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Okay, number one, black jobs is wild. What is a black job? Are there half black jobs? But that's not what he meant. He meant American jobs that meant taking jobs from those people. That's the individual people that we were talking about black voters. They're going to try to run with that because it sounds really bad, but in context, it's appropriate.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back.
No, it was actually pretty consistent throughout Trump's presidency, and Trump had a great economy. You know, maybe not the greatest economy in the history of economies, but it was still a pretty damn good one.
15% unemployment. He decimated the economy. Absolutely decimated the economy.
So here we have a president and a former president. Wow, what a time to be alive. So we have a president and a former president blaming each other on the bad economy in 2020 and 2021, the last year of one's office, the beginning of the others. Meanwhile, there was a global pandemic happening. Neither one of them blamed COVID. I don't think either one of them even said COVID. One of my favorite moments of this entire debate was a mistake that Trump made. But it's only my favorite because of Biden's reaction.
And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that.
You know he has somebody like guiding him from his administration that he's looking at off camera. And he's looking at them like, shit, did I say that? No, that was actually Hillary Clinton. And she didn't just say that about them as a whole. She was talking about gang members and never mentioned African Americans once.
They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators. No conscience, no empathy.
Now from here, they move on to the environment and climate change. Trump was asked what he would do to clean up the environment and help slow climate change, if anything at all.
I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been.
That's about half true. Outdoor particulate air pollution and outdoor ozone reached low points between 2016 and 2020. Trump's record on the environment and him at the debate saying he wants clean water contradict each other. A Trump administrative rule from 2020 removed Clean Water Act protections for 1/4 of wetlands, 1/5 of streams, and 30% of watersheds that provide drinking water to households. In total, he removed 28 rules that protected the air and 8 which protected water.
I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors.
Now, it is true that Trump did bring down the price of insulin for some seniors. Biden made sure it was for everyone on Medicare. Under Trump, it was voluntary. Under Biden, it was mandatory. So obviously, there's a lot of things that I skipped on this debate. A lot of the personal attacks, you're a convicted felon, look at your son, that type of stuff. But during one of the personal exchanges, Biden brought up presidential historians.
159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
That means absolutely nothing other than those are terrible presidential historians considering our nation's history. Try to make the case that Trump was worse than James Buchanan. Try to make the case that he was worse than Millard Fillmore. If it is true, if he is the worst president in history, why is he beating Biden in just about every poll and in just about every swing state poll where it matters? Now, this next clip is what's wrong with this country, is what's wrong with the office of the presidency. Jake Tapper asked about the cost of childcare. The cost of childcare in the United States is so high, sending 2 kids to daycare costs more than the average rent. And with the price of rent and cost of living, you need both parents at work. Trump was asked first. This was his response.
In your second term, what would you do to make childcare more affordable?
And just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up.
It was just basically, I don't care, but this guy bruised my ego, so I'm going to attack him now. Biden's reply is not much better. He was asked the same thing, and instead of saying, wow, look at that, he completely avoided the question. We're here talking about the issues of the American people, and he's avoiding the issue. Instead, he has a bruised ego, and now he wants to attack his political opponent.
Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians. They've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history, one through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history.
So imagine if you lost to him in November, where you would rate. That's what the polls are saying is going to happen. So they give Trump another chance to answer the question. They really helped him out on that one. They were like, no, take another minute, answer the question. Here's what he said.
About what would you do to make childcare more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad.
He did something similar talking about China when asked about the opioid crisis.
Struggling to get the treatment they need.
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate.
Neither one of those are true. In fact, the largest trade deficit the United States had with China was in 2018 under the Trump administration. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is my favorite moment of the debate.
I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
That would be so amazing. They could raise a bunch of money, make it pay-per-view, have them mic'd up. Let's see you drive the ball that far, Sleepy Joe. Now, Biden had a lot of witty one-liners loaded up, ready to go, but his delivery was so bad it kind of ruined it.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway.
See, he was close. Trump did say he weighs 215 pounds, and that he's 6'3". He is definitely 6'3", but he's more like 250 pounds. Instead, he messed up 6'5". Trump said no. He immediately conceded, said 6'4". Trump said no again, and then he just gave up. And that's how the entire rest of the debate went. Like, I cut out a lot of the bullshit them going after each other, and it still took me 20 minutes to go over all of the misinformation that they both said. And I already know I missed something. I'm gonna go back and watch the debate one more time and go, damn it, I missed that one. At the very end, they had closing statements, and they both just attacked each other. They had nothing to stand on other than, I'm not that guy. I'm really tired now. Thank you so much if you watched that entire thing. You're a legend.